If there's such a thing as a lucky break, we might have just gotten one. I couldn't believe the report when I looked on it with my own eyes. Still too focused on the loss of the Tosa, an Amagi-class battleship, and the 2 battlecruisers of the Katsuragi class to even focus on any positive things. And then I got word. Surprising, but well, it was good news. The first real piece of good news I'd heard in months. Minakaze, one of our destroyers, assigned to the Kongo-class battlecruiser group. It's hard to keep up with these reports these days, but I'm getting off on a tangent. The Kongo-class have their own semi-specialized task force to do convoy raiding and attack German heavy cruisers and other cruiser formations. Well, the battleship Elsass, one of the German, what we call Leviathan class. Their actual class is the Braunschweig. They weigh over 70,000 tons and carry 17.4-inch guns. I've written about them before, but she was traveling by her lonesome. From my sources inside of Germany, they told me that the ship was reassigned, and her escorts had to keep fending off air attacks from our Air Force, and so she was told to just make the run up the Arabian Sea. She got lucky, got past the Arabian Sea, then into the Red Sea, and got all the way to the Suez, which is still controlled by our allies in the British. They immediately informed me that it might be useful for me to know that there's a 70,000-ton warship passing through. Now, of course, I couldn't alert the Congos, so I just made general alerts to the fleet in the Mediterranean and the Black Sea that a lone battleship was approaching, probably to link up with a task force on the other side of the Suez. About 28 hours later, I got a phone call. It was from Congo. It was from the flagship. The captain was jubilated, and he informed me, "Admiral, Elsass is no more." Apparently, after the Elsass exited, she made a break for it, trying to rendezvous with the German task forces off of Crete. However, she didn't count on the Congos being able to find her. Well, they found her. Somewhere in between the Suez and Crete, the destroyers went in for the kill. Knowing that the battleship was vulnerable, didn't have much anti-destroyer armament that could realistically sink them in a single shot besides its main guns, well, it worked. Minakaze, as I said before, led her destroyer squadron in, and within a few moments of engagement, I would say, I think they said it was about 20 minutes, the ship was keeling over. Her destroyer group had sent out almost their entire torpedo loads. I mean, there are very few torpedoes left between them, so much so we had to send them back to Rhodes in order to get more. It's just the break we needed. Another German Leviathan gone, making it 3 this war. But there's still that other thing that's been nagging me. The loss of Tosa, Katsuragi, and Oku Hotaka still plagues on my mind. What was supposed to be a battle against German heavy cruisers quickly turned south as the heavy cruisers, unfortunately, seemed to also follow this newfound German doctrine of strapping torpedoes to every available deck space. Tosa went down to heavy flooding. We tried to tow her, but to no avail. There is reports that her wreck might not be totally lost, as she's in a relatively shallow area, and it's possible, albeit a long shot, to at least salvage what we can. Her wreck is technically in a shallower spot, so it wouldn't be too hard. I'll contact the Navy Board about it, but quite frankly, I'm not interested. Katsuragi is more of a loss, along with her sister ship. They were the last two Katsuragi classes. Thankfully, we had a lucky break, if one could consider us being lucky enough to have two lucky breaks in a row. Korea, our Commonwealth, made a phone call. They had an incomplete Katsuragi hull. They had been working on fiddling around with the design and trying to make something more suited to their needs. Knowing our preservation laws, they offered the ship. She'll need a complete overhaul, and it'll probably take as long as it would be to build a Katsuragi outright, but we took them up on their offer. The ship will remain in Tokyo for the time being, although will technically be under the Koreans' command, but they did ask that we name it Katsuragi. So, I guess there is a silver lining. The battle off of Crete is rough. The first invasion didn't work, but our guerrilla forces had been getting supply drops in, and it seems to be working, as they're still holding out as best they can. Some of our Marines have been able to make contact, although it's been scattered at best. Scouts running into each other and exchanging information. The locals aren't exactly keen on the Germans occupying what is realistically a Greek island, and they're not exactly too keen about us either, but considering that the German fleet decided that our guerrilla tactics were a bit too much for their liking, decided to throw 17.4-inch shells into the interior of the island, it kind of made them change their mind. And now I look to something else. There's been a border skirmish with the last remnant state of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It's still technically around, but it's completely landlocked. And Serbia's been getting uppity, and, well, they started attacking Romania. We believe, but we don't have proof, that the Soviets or the Germans might be behind it. Speaking of the Germans, a strange encounter happened last week. A ship bearing a flag of Germany came into one of our ports. On board was a diplomat who got off the ship, and then the ship left. He surrendered himself to the authorities and had quite the repertoire behind him and reputation. I knew him. It was Maximilian Koreth. He's foreign born, but he's lived in Germany all of his life. But Koreth, don't ask me how to spell it, he secretly wanted a meeting with me and the Emperor. I couldn't get him a meeting with the Emperor, but I could get him in front of the General Staff. The Emperor was in attendance, but we advised him not to really get involved. However, Korth did confirm one of my suspicions. The civilian dictatorship and the military junta governments have been effectively toying for power in Germany. The people are upset, and the monarchist resistance is growing ever more. Their ranks are swelling. And in stranger news, the British have asked me to come meet in Hong Kong with the Crown Prince of Germany. I later found out, well, at the time of invitation, I didn't know this at the time, but I'd later find out that the Kaiser, secretly, had sent most of his family to Sweden for the time being. Then, in the cover of darkness, they flew their plane into British territory, and then sailed all the way around the world. Well, almost. At least the Crown Prince. His family stayed behind in England. But the Crown Prince wants to negotiate directly, man to man, along with some of the monarchist leaders. Including of them is the Admiral, who was in charge of the fleet before the civilian dictatorship removed him from power. Now, he's got intelligence on the latest formations of German ships, and he has confirmed that the German fleet is effectively trapped in the Black Sea. And with some clever negotiations, we were able to kind of figure out which ships had monarchists on them, and he said he would try to weasel them out of direct service. Let the radicals die on the ships, he said. We don't need them anyway. It's a bit harsh, but to him, I guess it's common sense. Germany's been fighting this war, and they've almost effectively had 3 different coups. So the people are becoming tired, restless. I sense the same in the streets of Japan. Normally, when I get up in the morning, if I'm staying in Tokyo, I'll walk down to a cafe. It's Western style, but I walk down without guards and I enjoy a cup of tea. Then I eat some breakfast, and then, as I guess is tradition for most sailors nowadays, a large cup of coffee. And I sit and I read, sometimes for a half hour, sometimes for an hour. And because I'm in a public space, some people come up and ask me questions. Some people are concerned about their family members. Others are asking what the point of this all is. And others ask me what my thoughts are. You see, the problem with being at such a war on such a grand scale is shipping losses are starting to mount. And based on the economic reports, our GDP is starting to slump a little bit. We're not in a recession, but economic growth is slowing, and wartime production can only be kept up for so long. Thankfully, I had the foresight, along with my army counterpart, to make sure we had plenty of spare ammunition, guns, rifles, medical supplies, effectively anything that we might need for war. Basically, we've been able to tone down war production and war economy down to basically keeping the stockpiles full. We're not exactly trying to equip another 5 regiments. But I still sense their nervousness. The people are tired of the war, quite frankly. And everyone seems to be on the same page, from what I can gather in Germany, and then of course here at home. They know that this war isn't directly between Germany and Japan. Someone else started it. This isn't what you might say is their war. Frankly, they're right. But I can't release those letters yet. If I do, well, Lord knows what would happen to our allies in Germany. However, if to finish off this last note with something, I guess, encouraging, the Dutch resistance made contact with the monarchist militias in Germany, and they're starting to combine their forces. And I heard that they've uncovered some documents relating to German fleet movements. Very important documents. If those documents are to be believed about the German submarine deployments, we could send out bombers to go intercept them, or at least shake them off our convoys. So I'll have to review the report today. But for now, I guess it's about reflection. We'll need another battleship to replace Tosa. And, well, the Yamato class is still technically on pause while we get the entire fleet fixed up as best as we can in wartime. The pinch of wartime economy hasn't quite fully been felt yet, but I sense it's coming. and I need to be ready for it.